Genshin Impact 5.1 is finally right around the corner, and the Archon quest is gonna be extremely packed with action and drama from what we've seen in the trailer, and honestly, I'm all for it. We are getting a new amazing character, Shilonen, and she looks simply amazing, and her skating animation reminds me of Helena from the movie Dead or Alive. The way she turns into a jaguar while in her Night Soul Blessing state, and the fact that she can simply chill on the side of a mountain, means that I'm probably gonna get as many screenshots of her as I did for Clive from Final Fantasy XVI, and by the way, if you're interested, I'm still uploading pictures on my Instagram account, ShadowXImpact. As you might have deduced, I'm definitely pulling for Shilonen, and if things keep going like this, I fear I'll pull for mostly every single character from Natlan. Anyway, we should probably begin with the analysis of the trailer and the livestream, but first, this is a theory video. I will use information available in the game, but my theories and conclusions are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I got something right and it's confirmed in a later update of the game itself. That being said, I'm going to split the trailer analysis in two different sections. In the first one, we will talk about what has been said, while the second one will be all about what we saw. So, let's all ignite our inner flame and let's get this video started. In the trailer, we heard Citlali telling us that Mawika's plan will take too long and that many things could go wrong as a consequence, and I suppose she's talking about the fact that Mawika is patiently waiting for the two remaining heroes, one from the Masters of the Nightwind and one from the Flower Feather clan, to discover their role in the plan. The potential problems are obvious enough. Mawika's plan doesn't have a precise deadline, so the Abyss could invade Natlan at any time, before all 6 heroes are gathered. Furthermore, it seems that Citlali knows about Mawika's plan, but the hero from her tribe has yet to appear, and this alone would prove my theory that Ororon is the one who inherited Sanhash's ancient name, together with the fact that he fits the description of the craftsman hero from the Scarlet Eye Youth story, who also belonged to the Masters of the Nightwind, and in the next section of the video we will literally see that he is one of the heroes. Then Shilonen tells us that Mawika confirmed that the Pyro Gnosis can be used to solve Natlan's problem, so the invasion of the Abyss, but it would come at a great price, so it seems that the Gnosis is Mawika's plan B. When it comes to the great price to pay, considering this nation revolves around death, it's not too hard to figure out. We then hear Citlali again telling us that she found a distress signal left by someone from the Masters of the Nightwind, which she interprets as Ororon being forced to help Capitano under threat. We've been told in the livestream that Ororon is working on a secret plan, which makes me think that his ancient name has to do with being a double agent, or at the very least, being involved with the enemy while being essential to his defeat, just like the craftsman used to work for the Python King, and because of that, his knowledge became crucial to defeating him. Only with Ororon things may be slightly more complicated, but we're talking about it later. Then we hear Shilonen saying that she is trying to finish the ancient name, and to do so she has to be in a specific place. 5.0 ended with Mawika promising us to have Shilonen forge an ancient name for the Traveler, a near impossible thing no one has ever attempted before, because the Traveler is an outsider and his heroic deeds haven't been recorded in the Night Kingdom, which is the prerequisite for an ancient name to exist. Although the biggest question here would be, can the Traveler's heroic deeds be recorded in the Night Kingdom in the first place, since it is basically the Natlan alternative for the ley lines and they have been unable to record anything about the Traveler. Anyway, the thing here is that Shilonen is the one speaking and she's referring to an unknown she. An ancient name isn't something that can be just forged like a normal object. It requires the Lord of the Night most likely, since thanks to this name a person can be brought back to life through the Night Kingdom, which makes me think that although Shilonen can forge one, Mawika, or any Pyro Archon in general, also has a role in the forging process. Considering that the people of Natlan acquired the ability to be brought back to life because Balanke, the first Pyro Archon, basically stole the Dragon Sovereign's flame, becoming the first person to ever be resurrected, I'd say that the Pyro Archons in general need to be involved in the forging of a new ancient name. The other option though is that the Traveler's ancient name is so impossible to make that Mawika had to take matters into her hand and complete it herself with her Archon powers. Next we heard Ororon, or at least that voice sounds the same as his English and Japanese voice actors, saying that someone's soul has been temporarily restrained and that it has become more fragile in the process. I could think this is Ororon telling the traveler his secret plan, so the Masters of the Nightwind may be secretly restraining Capitano's soul, weakening him as a consequence. You probably already know I still think Capitano is Tenoch, so I guess we're getting closer to figuring the truth out. Right after Ororon, we heard Mawika talking about what seems to be a plan that may end up causing a confrontation with Capitano, and she's ready to stall him to allow someone to advance. I think that this is the result of Ororon's secret plan. He brought info and we're getting ready to infiltrate Capitano's base, just like the Scarlet-Eyed Youth infiltrated the Python King's ineffable city thanks to the knowledge the craftsman brought to the table. Next, things get more mysterious because we heard Capitano telling someone that Mawika has been hiding the truth, and once this person knows what she's hiding, they would probably want to accept his proposal. Now, this is the reason why I'm splitting the words from the images, because we see Capitano and Ororon in the Night Kingdom while I think he's talking to the Traveler, and he's making us a proposal to save Natlan by going against Mawika's plan and making a decision in her place. We then hear Mawika saying that Natlan would be doomed without the Lord of the Night and the protection of the rules, which seems to be a clear hint at Capitano's plan. Considering that the destruction of Natlan would happen if the Abyss were to completely invade the Night Kingdom, what if the Night Kingdom got removed altogether? It does make sense, logically speaking, but then again Natlan doesn't have ley lines, so I honestly don't see that as an actual good idea. Yet Capitano is definitely ready to pay whatever price there is to save Natlan and humanity, and he also can comprehend why Mawika wouldn't do the same, which again makes me think that he is Tenoch, since it's literally what he told Mawika 500 years ago. We then hear Citlali again saying that Natlan must pay the price and only Mawika's death can clear the debt. This might be tricky because it seems that Natlan owes a life, a specific one, that of the Archon, but why? How can Mawika's death solve the invasion of the Abyss and Natlan's destruction? I have two options for you, but I'm sure you'll come up with many more in the comment section. The sacred flame that Xbalanque stole from the Dragon Sovereign may be able to fix the ley lines, because it may have the power to resurrect any kind of life, even that of the Irminsul tree that the Dragon Sovereign himself severed millennia ago, which then forced the last standing Heavenly Envoy to use the few leaves left on the tree to create the Night Kingdom. Once the ley lines are working again, the Night Kingdom will cease to exist, stopping the invasion of the Abyss at the same time. The problem is that the Pyro Archon, Mawika in our case, is holding on to that power, and her death may be the only way to relinquish it and save the nation, which in turn would also lose the protection of the Lord and the Night, most likely the envoy from before, and the rules that allow people to be resurrected. The other option is that Natlan owes Celestia the Pyro Archon's life, because Xbalanque should have died when he fought the Dragon Sovereign, but he used the sacred flames to come back to life against fate, something Sasti would define as an arrogation of mankind. Because of him, the people of Natlan also stopped going back to the cycle of life and rebirth upon death, being brought back when they shouldn't have. This means that the rules he created may be the problem, and the title of the Archon quest, The Rainbow Destined to Burn, may be a hint, because the rainbow could be the Bifrost, the rainbow bridge that connects Midgard, so the Earth, humanity, to Asgard, the realm of the gods, which in Natlan is represented by the rules that allow a human to ascend to Archonhood, which is again an arrogation of mankind. Since it is destined to burn, it may mean that there won't be any new Pyro Archon, those rules will be destroyed, which in turn may mean that Xbalanque didn't just borrow Ronobas or the Heaven's powers, he straight up stole them, and they want them back. Moving on, we heard Ororon saying that his end will not come first and that he's not giving up, which is really hard to figure out, especially because we don't know what happened to Sanhash 500 years ago, so we don't know if he's destined to die first according to the plan. Lastly, we hear Capitano saying something pretty interesting. He said that if he could go back, he would do whatever it took to ensure their survival. I don't think it's simply talking about the heroes from 500 years ago, because as we know, Mahuika brought them back to life and allowed them to live the rest of their lives with their families. Although there is a slight, well, not so slight actually, possibility that dying and coming back to life doesn't really mean fully coming back to life. They might lose something in the process, because let's be honest, a resurrection is not something that normally exists in Teyvat, quite the opposite actually, so there has to be a price to pay, and again, this is what Mahuika's death may also solve. Apart from this, I've been thinking that Capitano may not be just Tenoch, but two people sharing one body, or whatever is left of it, keeping each other alive way past their, let's say, expiration date, which is something I started thinking when Capitano said,
"You heard something from here, didn't you?"
Let's just say I'm not completely over the Menogias theory, especially with Capitano seemingly being Geo and not Cryo, since what he conjures looks exactly like solid phlogiston, which is indeed Geo, only devoid of color because it's the Night Kingdom version of it. In this case, then, he might be talking about the Yakshas, who actually died. Do we wanna talk about the similarities between Capitano and Zhongli's clothes, down to the dragon scales on the sides? I mean, Zhongli wears clothes Menogias designed, and the Fatui Harbingers all share similar designs, as if there was one specific person behind their clothes, and they are very similar to Zhongli's clothes as well. Well, now that we've talked about what has been said in the trailer, it's time to talk about what we saw. First of all, we're back inside what I defined as Mahuika's consciousness, where we see the sun symbol we already saw in 5.0, but also this massive brazier that lit one moment and extinguished the next. Then we see what seems to be the area beneath the Stadium of the Sacred Flame, and then Citlali following these Masters of the Nightwind traces on the ground, which may be Ororon's distress signal. After Shilonen's introduction, we see an underground structure built on a small island surrounded by liquid phlogiston, with a huge Tepetlisor bas-relief on top, which means we should be in a new area of the Children of the Echoes, but what's strange is the purple elemental dome on top of the building, and the Traveler seemingly ready to fight based on how he moved. Next we see Mahuika with the Pyro Gnosis in her hand, surrounded by a Pyro Dome at the center of the arena in the Stadium of the Sacred Flame, completely enveloped in abyssal power. All the braziers have been extinguished, and it seems the Sacred Flame too is no more. Then, after the new boss, we see a very nicely designed ancient circular door with this specific diamond symbol that we can find on the Pyro Arcan banner. Next we see Capitano and Ororon in the Night Kingdom, and this could mean two things. The most obvious one is that Ororon is doing something on the ground on Capitano's orders, or that Ororon was leaving some traces behind, like another distract signal perhaps, but he didn't notice Capitano watching, so he was caught red-handed. We also see Ororon's electrovision, but we're talking about it, or more specifically why it's silver, later. Then we see Chaska and Koichi watching the Fatui operating a strange cube that may belong to the Masters of the Nightwind, because the triangular symbol kinda looks like the one on their banner. Next we're again in the underground ancient dragon's ruins we used to get to the Night Kingdom in 5.0, where we see a strange device that is most likely missing the central piece, and then we see a massive abyss portal in front of the stadium, leaking countless abyss monsters. Note that the Fatui are fighting the monsters together with Ororon, who to my great displeasure is a bow user. Then we see first Mualani and then Kinich, Paimon and the Traveler suddenly stop fighting because something is about to happen. By the way, I think the Traveler finally decided to get rid of the weakest weapon in the game and chose to use the prototype Rancor, which surprised me also because it's actually the weapon my Traveler uses. Then things get even more serious when a pillar of abyssal power shot up in the sky from where the Sacred Flame was supposed to be, opening up a very strange and extremely ominous portal that later expanded in the sky as if whatever's inside was about to replace Natlan itself, which makes me think that the Night Kingdom may be about to be released on the nation. This also kinda reminds me of the Harvest Token, by the way. We see Mahuika in the stadium with the Gnosis again, something happens to the glitch abyss portal in the sky, and Mahuika starts gathering pyro elemental energy in her hand. I don't think you noticed this unless you watch the trailer frame by frame, but all around Mawika there are the current 6 heroes accompanied by those from the Cataclysm. We can clearly see Kinich and Burkina, and right after we can see Ororon's hood and Sanhaj, and later we see all 6 banners surrounding her, so we might say that she managed to get the 6 heroes just in time to save Natlan as she planned. We then see a flame being ignited in her hand that causes yet another pillar next to the abyssal one, many more either abyss portals or Masters of the Nightwind devices, considering we see smoke under some of them, and lastly Mawika in her Night Soul Blessing state, hair flaming, jumping in the sky, ready to deliver a pyro punch at something, probably the weird portal in the sky. Now we obviously need to briefly talk about the Pyro Gnosis. Initially, I believed it was the king piece, because it has something like crown, the Natlan sun symbol. A king is the one who wages war, and also because it makes sense story-wise for 2 reasons. The king can only be checkmated, and the Pyro Gnosis is the last one the Fatui need to recover to move on with their plan, so if Capitano got it and brought it back, it would be a checkmate. But also the king cannot be captured in chess, so we would keep it this time, giving us both the fleeting feeling of winning against the Fatui for once, that is until we go to Snezhnaya and give it to the Tsaritsa of our own volition, which would be a nice twist in the story, and it would also give us an excuse to stay in Natlan for the next 7 update instead of running after Capitano before it's too late. On the other hand, after a careful analysis, the Pyro Gnosis may also be another rook, just like the Geo one. The rook is basically a castle tower, and the things on top, that are called crenellation, kinda look like a crown. I won't go too deep about the Gnosis today, mainly because I'm working on a Harbinger and Chessboard remake video in which I'll talk about them in detail, and just so you know, I think I'm close to a major discovery. I feel a Eureka moment is about to happen. Plus, I already have an interesting theory about the Hydro Gnosis and how we've actually seen it, but we didn't realize it, and if I'm right, it may have also told us what the Cryo Gnosis might be. The last topic for today is Ororon's vision. As we saw, it's silver, and so far, the only silver visions we've seen belong to the Fatui, more specifically those who own a delusion. So far, we thought that the vision thing the Fatui wear was the delusion, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Take Child as a leading example. In Fontaine, we saw him transforming into his foul legacy form, which is what he can do because of his delusion, and we do see at the center of his waist the Snezhnayan inlay that's supposed to be the delusion, except for the fact that back then we had this vision in our invisible backpack, which means that his vision is not also his delusion. This could have been confirmed since basically the beginning of the game, because we know Signora has a delusion, but she doesn't wear anything that remotely looks like a vision. Then in Sumeru we saw Dottore, who also owns a delusion but not a vision, and going back, Teppei was given a delusion, but he didn't wear neither a vision nor something that looked like it. This should mean that a delusion must be something else, something the Fatui have been given that may not even be a physical object. It's just the power of a dead god given to a person, which kinda reminds me of Dottore's experiments on Kale, probably being the early stages of the creation of what later became a delusion. It follows then that when a vision holder, an allogene, uses the power of a delusion, it corrupts their bodies but also their actual visions, so the inlay is kinda downgraded from gold to silver, reason why Child and Arlecchino, but also Ororon in this case, have a silver vision, while Lini and Lynette's visions are still gold, and the same applies to Kale, because she never used the serpent's powers after she received her vision. The obvious problem that may be found with this theory is that every elite Fatui operative would be vision holders, but their visions somehow don't display the symbol of their element but the Fatui logo, but the solution is very simple. They all are indeed allogenes. When Child enters his first delusion stage, his vision's element turns into the Fatui logo, and the color also changes to reflect the new element he's using. The same goes for Arlecchino, whose vision also goes from Pyro to Fatui logo. This is basically the delusion power taking over the vision, corrupting it, we might say. As a consequence, to answer the Elite Fatui dilemma, they're simply in a constant delusion state, they're always transformed, hence their visions always have the Fatui logo instead of the symbol of the element they're using. The only person who didn't have a vision but a physical object that looked like one and was considered a delusion was Creepus, Diluc's father, but even then the red orb didn't have any inlay nor symbol inside. It was just an object infused with the remains of a dead god, most likely an early unstable delusion, a prototype that didn't work as the current ones. In conclusion, Ororon is a Fatus. He was given a delusion and he works with them, as we saw in the trailer, but he most likely went through all this trouble, putting his life at risk just to save Natlan, and that's probably what his ancient name stands for. Is Ororon the 10th unknown harbinger? Maybe? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Anyway, to conclude the video, this trailer has given us so many questions that we can't answer right now, and considering the fact that the two remaining heroes will be awakened in 5.1 and 5.2 doesn't have an Archon quest, so it's probably all about our little buddy and Ochka Natlan, it makes me wonder what we will do in 5.3, the last part of the Archon quest. Will Mahuika die in 5.1 and stay dead until something absurd and unexpected happens in the last act? What will be Capitano's role in all of this? Will he eventually rule over Natlan until a new hero defeats him, almost like the Python King in the history of Natlan after Xbalanque died? Well, lucky for us, we won't have to wait much longer to get these answers. And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Genshin Impact Theory videos, consider subscribing. I'll see you again with a 5.1 analysis video, then I'll start writing the Harbingers and chessboard video that I'm already working on, in which I'll also try to explain what an Archon really is, but I also have a secret project I mentioned a few weeks ago that I think no one has done before, but I'm still waiting for something useful for it to appear in Natlan. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, over and out.